it's just not going to end well. Yeah, you can have wealth and accumulation, but these are things that crumble in time. You have to have peace of mind, and peace of mind comes by knowing that you're loved and the people that you love you back.
After decades of marriages, heartbreaks, public scandals, and one mistake he would regret for years, Sylvester Stallone finally admitted there was only one woman he never truly stopped loving. The world remembers him as Rocky, the underdog who refused to stay down, the fighter who kept getting back up no matter how hard life hit him. But away from the cameras, Stallone faced battles no audience could see. Some women stood beside him when he was struggling to pay bills and searching for his next acting job. Others arrived after Rocky and Rambo had turned him into one of the biggest stars on Earth. A few relationships ended quietly. Others ended in headlines seen around the world. One breakup arrived in a 6-page FedEx letter. Another decision nearly cost him the love of his life forever. Yet, after decades of success, regret, second chances, and lessons learned the hard way, one woman remained different from all the rest. Not the most glamorous, not the most famous, but the one who became his home. And at 79, Sylvester Stallone finally revealed the woman he loved most. Before we begin, tell me in the comments, do you remember Stallone best as Rocky, Rambo, or another unforgettable role from his remarkable career? The woman who believed in him before Rocky. Long before the world knew his name, before the red carpets, before Rocky Balboa became a symbol of perseverance, Sylvester Stallone was simply a struggling young actor trying to survive. The dream was alive, but success was not. There were days when money was scarce, days when rejection seemed endless, days when the future felt far less certain than the determination he carried inside him. And during those difficult years, there was Sasha Czack. She entered his life before the fame arrived, before Hollywood opened its doors, before the world began celebrating the man he would become. What Sasha saw was not a star. She saw a young man chasing a possibility. That may not sound remarkable today, but believing in someone before success changes everything. It means loving potential instead of achievement. It means standing beside uncertainty and choosing faith anyway. Together, they built a life during years that were anything but glamorous. While Stallone continued fighting for opportunities, Sasha became one of the few people who truly understood the pressure he carried. Then came the moment that changed everything. Rocky. Almost overnight, the struggling actor became one of the most recognizable faces in the world. The story that had once belonged only to him suddenly belonged to millions. But success often asks a price. The schedules became longer. The demands became greater. The private life they once shared slowly became public property. And somewhere beneath the celebrations, the interviews, and the growing responsibilities, something began to change. Not through anger, not through betrayal, just through the quiet distance that sometimes appears when two people are trying to hold on to a life that no longer exists. Some seasons of love are built to last forever. Others are built to carry us through the years when we need them most. For Sylvester Stallone, Sasha Czack was more than his first wife. She was the woman who stood beside him when the dream still belonged only to him. And no matter what came later, that chapter would always remain part of his story. The blonde beauty who turned his world upside down. By the mid-1980s, Sylvester Stallone was no longer fighting for a place in Hollywood. He had already conquered it. Rocky had become a cultural phenomenon. Rambo had transformed him into an international superstar. Everywhere he went, cameras followed. Every decision made headlines. And then came Brigitte Nielsen. She was impossible to ignore. Tall, striking, confident, and unlike anyone Stallone had known before, Brigitte arrived in Hollywood carrying a presence that seemed larger than life. When they met during the making of Rocky IV, the attraction was immediate. The public could not get enough of them. Almost overnight, they became one of the most talked-about couples in entertainment. Magazine covers featured them. Television programs discussed them. Reporters followed their every move. In December 1985, they married in a lavish ceremony that attracted enormous media attention. To many people watching from the outside, they seemed like the perfect Hollywood couple. But appearances rarely tell the whole story. Behind the glamorous photographs and red carpet smiles was a relationship moving at extraordinary speed. Fame surrounded them from every direction. Every disagreement became gossip. Every rumor became a headline. For a time, it must have felt exciting. The attention, the passion, the feeling of standing at the center of the world. But excitement and permanence are rarely the same thing. As the months passed, the pressures surrounding their relationship became increasingly difficult to ignore. What began as a whirlwind romance slowly started revealing its cracks. The world watched, the rumors multiplied, and the marriage that had captured so much attention began to unravel. Some relationships enter our lives like a storm. They arrive suddenly. They change the landscape. And even after they pass, the memory remains. For Stallone, Brigitte Nielsen represented a chapter of enormous fame, enormous emotion, and enormous lessons. Because as dazzling as the spotlight can be, it cannot replace the quieter things that allow love to endure. And when that chapter finally ended, Stallone found himself searching once again for something Hollywood fame could never provide. The women who shared his Hollywood years. After the end of his marriage to Brigitte Nielsen, Sylvester Stallone entered a very different chapter of life. Professionally, he seemed unstoppable. Rocky was already a cultural phenomenon. Rambo had turned him into one of the most recognizable action stars in the world. His films dominated theaters, and his name alone could attract audiences across the globe. From the outside, it looked like he had everything. But success has a strange way of revealing what it cannot provide. Over the following years, Stallone was linked to several women, including singer and actress Susan Anton and later model Angie Everhart. Some relationships attracted media attention. Others remained far more private. Yet none of them became the lasting partnership many people expected. The truth was simpler than the headlines suggested. Stallone wasn't just looking for romance. He was looking for stability. After years of living in the spotlight, the excitement that once seemed thrilling no longer carried the same meaning. Magazine covers faded. Movie premieres ended. The applause always eventually stopped. And when it did, a different question remained. Who would still be there when the cameras were gone? Many people spend years chasing success only to discover that achievement and happiness are not the same thing. In many ways, that was the lesson Stallone was slowly beginning to learn. The relationships during these years were not failures. They were reminders. Reminders that admiration is not the same as understanding. That attraction is not the same as trust, and that fame cannot provide the sense of belonging that every person ultimately seeks. Without realizing it, Stallone was moving closer to the most important relationship of his life. Because somewhere ahead was a woman who would offer something Hollywood never could. Not excitement, not headlines, but a place to call home. The love he thought he could replace. Sometimes the most important person in our lives does not arrive with great drama. They arrive quietly. And that was how Jennifer Flavin entered Sylvester Stallone's world. When they first met in the late 1980s, Stallone was already one of the most recognizable men on the planet. Jennifer was young, graceful, and far removed from the chaos that often surrounded Hollywood fame. Their connection felt different. There was no whirlwind romance designed for magazine covers, no competition for attention, no attempt to become Hollywood's latest power couple. Instead, there was something far rarer: comfort. For the first time in years, Stallone seemed to find peace in a relationship that wasn't built around publicity. Jennifer brought balance into a life that had spent decades moving at full speed. While the world saw Rocky and Rambo, she saw the man behind the image, the man carrying expectations, pressures, and responsibilities few people truly understood. Friends noticed the difference. Jennifer had a calming influence on him. She wasn't impressed by fame because she had met the man, not the legend. For several years, their relationship appeared strong. But even the strongest relationships can face difficult tests. By the mid-1990s, rumors were beginning to surround Stallone's personal life. The demands of fame never truly disappeared, and uncertainty slowly began replacing the confidence they once shared. Then came a decision that would later haunt him. Instead of ending the relationship face-to-face, Stallone sent Jennifer a 6-page FedEx letter. Just like that, a relationship that had lasted for years was over. For Jennifer, the pain wasn't only the breakup itself, it was the way it happened. After investing years of her life in the relationship, she was left trying to understand how everything could end through words delivered by a courier. Years later, Stallone admitted he handled the situation badly. At the time, he may have believed he was moving toward a different future. What he didn't realize was that he was walking away from the person who understood him better than anyone else. Sometimes people believe they can replace what they have. Only later do they discover that certain people are impossible to replace. And before long, Stallone would learn that lesson the hard way, because a controversy was already approaching, one that would change everything. The mistake that nearly cost him everything. There are moments in life when we believe we are making the right decision. Only later do we realize we were walking away from something irreplaceable. For Sylvester Stallone, that moment arrived in the mid-1990s. By then, Jennifer Flavin had become one of the most important people in his life. They had shared years together. They had built memories, weathered challenges, and imagined a future. Then came the controversy that changed everything. In 1994, model Janice Dickinson publicly claimed that Stallone was the father of her newborn daughter. The story exploded across newspapers, television programs, and entertainment magazines. Almost overnight, Stallone found himself trapped inside a storm of speculation. Reporters demanded answers. Television hosts debated the story. And everywhere he turned, people seemed convinced they already knew the truth. Faced with uncertainty, Stallone made a decision that would become one of the greatest regrets of his life. He walked away from Jennifer Flavin. For a brief moment, it appeared that an entirely different future was waiting for him. Then the DNA results arrived. The child was not his. Just as quickly as the controversy had begun, the foundation beneath it disappeared. But by then, the damage had already been done. Jennifer was gone. The trust they had spent years building had been shattered. And for the first time, Stallone was forced to confront a painful question. Had he thrown away the most important relationship of his life because of fear, confusion, and a decision made too quickly? The fame remained. The success remained. The box office records remained. But none of those things brought the peace he once felt beside Jennifer. As the months passed, Stallone began to understand what he had truly lost. Not a relationship, a partner. Someone who had loved him before the headlines, before the controversies, and beyond the image the public knew. Years later, Stallone openly admitted that period of his life was one of his greatest mistakes. Because success can replace many things. It can replace money. It can replace status. Sometimes it can even replace opportunities. But it cannot replace the right person. Fortunately, life occasionally offers something extraordinary. A second chance. Not everyone receives one. And not everyone has the courage to admit they were wrong. But Stallone did. And that second chance would eventually lead him back to the woman who had never truly left his heart. In the end, Sylvester Stallone's story was never just about fame. It was not about Rocky. It was not about Rambo. And it was not about becoming one of the most recognizable faces in Hollywood history. It was about the people who walked beside him through the different seasons of his life. Some relationships taught him valuable lessons. Some left behind memories. Some changed his path forever. But only one endured the test of time. Jennifer Flavin was not simply the woman he loved. She became the woman he kept choosing. And perhaps that is the truest definition of love. If this story brought back memories of a different era, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who remembers these timeless Hollywood legends. And tell me in the comments, do you believe true love is something we find once in a lifetime, or is it something we choose every day?